perfection that fulfills all desire. He opens my darkened eyes, fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic praying emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master of the ocean of mercy, friend of the poor, and Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your precious lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, Hare Krishna and good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you so much, Adipurusha Prabhu, and everybody who was helping you sing. Today we have our dear Nanda Bihari Prabhu is driving, so I will be welcoming everyone as quickly as possible because we have a new speaker today and we're excited to hear from him. So good morning, Amrita Kishori Devi Dasi and Ananda Manjari Devi Dasi, our dear co-hosts. We're so happy to see you. Hare Krishna and good morning, Anandi and Arjuna Prabhu. Hare Krishna, good morning, Bhakta Hugo, U.S. Navy. Hare Krishna, good morning, Bhakti Devi and Bhima Prabhus. Hare Krishna, Bruce and Dana Kelly Das Prabhus. Hare Krishna, Gautam Ghosh and Ishvara Sundari Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna, good morning, Jamuna Jaya Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna, good morning, Popi. Hare Krishna and good morning, Suzanne. And Hare Krishna and good morning to our speaker today, Premananda Vilas Das Prabhu. We're so happy to have you here and doing this service for us. So we are live streaming. The floor is yours, Prabhu. Please go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, fantastic. I'm really grateful to be here, to receive a message from Ananda Bihari Prabhu asking me to share something this morning. I'm especially grateful because around 12 years ago was the first time that I spent any real time at an ashram, and it was the Bhakti Center. And tuning in this morning a little early, catching the end of the Mangal Arati with Adipurusha Prabhu, was so beautiful and reminded me exactly of those Mangal Artis during spring break of my junior year of undergrad, where I was at the Bhakti Center ashram and got to listen to that beautiful Mangal Arati. So thank you so much, Adipurusha Prabhu, and especially for that beautiful Jai Radha Madhava. So with that, I encourage you all, those of you who can, to feel free to turn on your cameras if you're able. And I will launch into some prayers before reading the verses and guiding a discussion. Om Jnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantika Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhan Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Ram Hare Hare Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini. So I'm going to try and share my screen so that you can all see the verses that we'll be discussing today. So from the 10th canto, can you all see my screen? I actually cannot see you, so someone can actually give me a shout out.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes. Perfect, thank you. So we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 52, verse 37 to 41. And before I start to read out the Sanskrit, if you'll all join me in Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Rukminya Vacha Shrutva Gunan Bhuvana Sundara Shrinvatamte Nirvishya Karna Vivarair Haratonga Tapam Rupam Drisham Drishimatam Akhilartha Labham Tvayachyuta Vishati Chitam Apatrampam Me. Translation by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Sri Rukmini said in her letter as read by the Brahmana, O beauty of the worlds, having heard of your qualities, which enter the ears of those who hear and remove their bodily distress, and having also heard of your beauty, which fulfills all the visual desires of those who see, I have fixed my shameless mind upon you, O Krishna. Purport. Rukmini was a king's daughter, courageous and bold, and furthermore, she would rather die than lose Krishna. Considering all this, she wrote a frank, explicit letter begging Krishna to come and take her away. So I'm going to read the verses for today and then launch into the discussion, if that's all right. Next verse, O Mukunda, you are equal only to yourself in lineage, character, beauty, knowledge, youthfulness, wealth, and influence. O lion among men, you delight the minds of all mankind. What aristocratic, sober-minded, and marriageable girl of a good family would not choose you as her husband when the proper time has come? Therefore, my dear Lord, I have chosen you as my husband, and I surrender myself to you. Please come swiftly, O Almighty One, and make me your wife. My dear lotus-eyed Lord, let Shishupal never touch the hero's portion like a jackal stealing the property of a lion. If I have sufficiently worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead by pious works, sacrifices, charity, rituals, and vows, and also by worshipping the demigods, brahmanas, and gurus, then may Gadagraja come and take my hand, and not Damogosha's son or anyone else. Purport. The Acharyas comment as follows on this verse. Rukmini felt that no one could obtain Lord Krishna by the efforts of a single lifetime. Therefore, she earnestly pointed out the pious activities she had performed in that life and previous lives, hoping to convince Sri Krishna to come. And the final verse for today. O unconquerable one, tomorrow when my marriage ceremony is about to begin, you should arrive unseen in Vidarbha and surround yourself with the leaders of your army. Then crush the forces of Chaitya and Magadhendra and marry me in the Rakshasa style, winning me with your valor. Purport. As Srila Prabhupada points out in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rukmini, being born of royal blood, certainly had a brilliant grasp of political affairs. She advised Sri Krishna to enter the city alone and unnoticed, and then surround himself with his military commanders so he could do what was needed. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti compares the coming fight to the Lord's churning of the ocean to extract the goddess Lakshmi. gorgeous Rukmini, the goddess of fortune, would be gained in the coming turbulence. Okay. And with that, I'm going to try and return to the Zoom. Stop the share so you can all be with me. Fantastic. Okay. I think it's really incredible that we get to read Rukmini's prayers. And I was reading Krishna book yesterday, this particular section, in order to prepare, and a few things occurred to me. First, how glorious is Rukmini-ji. She is not just the goddess of fortune, but Krishna's first wife in his whole Leela. She is the chief and first wife of Krishna. Krishna, who doesn't need anything because he's Atmaram. He is self-satisfied. And yet, he accepts a wife. And why does he do that? He does that in response to this heartfelt letter that Rukmini sends to him via a trusted Brahmana. This reminds me of chapter 4, verse 11 of the Gita, where Krishna says, in the way they offer themselves to me, in just that way, I offer my love to them reciprocally. Human beings follow my path universally, O Partha. I think it's incredible to see here exactly how this particular verse plays out. Rukmini makes a prayer, a heartfelt prayer, and in response to that prayer, Krishna actually comes and fulfills her desires exactly how Rukmini asked him to. So the reciprocity here, Krishna's reciprocity for Rukmini, and through Rukmini really showing all souls that Krishna reciprocates with us as we approach him. It's also interesting to note at this point in Krishna Lila in the 10th canto, many devotees have actually approached Krishna in the romantic mood, in the Shringara or Madhurya rasa. But by Yogamaya's arrangement, these have all been in the Parakiya mood, which means they've all been as paramours, as lovers outside the bonds of marriage. And the reasons for that are complex and really not the purpose of today's discussion, but simply it's to increase the mood, the taste, the enjoyment, the feelings of prema between Krishna and his devotees. However, this is the first time in this episode of the 10th canto in chapter 52 where we see Krishna entering into a Svakya relationship. So I wanted to point that out, meaning a relationship of marriage. So how glorious is Rukmini? But what I want to focus on today, more than anything else, is this particular prayer of Rukmini's and how it's instructive or can be instructive to us in several ways. So I'm going to read the first verse again. Sri Rukmini said in her letter as read by the Brahmana, O beauty of the worlds, having heard of your qualities which enter the ears of those who hear and remove their bodily distress, and having also heard of your beauty which fulfills all the visual desires of those who see, I have fixed my shameless mind upon you, O Krishna, Achyuta. What I thought was really significant here, and really the first lesson perhaps for us, first takeaway from this section, is that this message, this heartfelt, vulnerable prayer of Rukmini's is being transmitted to Krishna through a Brahmana, is being transmitted to Krishna through a trusted person in Rukmini's life, perhaps a trusted guru figure in Rukmini's life. Certainly for us, we can take it as an example of how we must approach Krishna through Guru, through the blessings of Guru. And what's interesting to me is that really in this particular Leela, it is a transmission. The Brahmana is just reading out Rukmini's own words, and yet Krishna receives them so sweetly. If you'll remember from the previous verses, Krishna received the Brahmana first. Despite the urgent nature of this letter from Rukmini, Krishna actually invited the Brahmana in before they read the letter, before the Brahmana read the letter, before Krishna asked him to read the letter. Krishna invited the Brahmana into his palace, placed him on the throne, offered him worship. But literally, I believe Srila Prabhupada writes, Krishna massaged the feet of the Brahmana. And only then, despite the urgency of this letter, only then does Krishna ask the Brahmana, well, if there's any particular purpose for which you arrived, please reveal that to me. And so the Brahmana shared, as far as I understand, verbatim, Rukmini's prayer, Rukmini's request. And so it's a beautiful indication of exactly how teachers in our lives, gurus in our lives, Shiksha and Diksha gurus in our lives can convey our heartfelt desires, our prayers to the Lord, to Sri Hari. And in this case, Rukmini's first words to Krishna refer to Krishna as Achyuta, O infallible one. Also recognizing how Krishna is capable of anything if he desires. He's infallible. There's no endeavor that Krishna desires to take up that if he wants to would be handicapped in any way. So Krishna can really fulfill all our desires. So Rukmini is saying, O Achyuta, O infallible one, you are so beautiful. So the first approach, so the first lesson that we can take is we can approach Krishna through Guru. The second, recognizing that this is a prayer. To take something back from this particular passage in the Bhagavatam into our own lives, aside from the glorious nature of the story itself, we can learn something about how to pray. And Rukminiji shows that to us in this first verse. Because the first thing she says is a recognition of how incredibly beautiful Krishna is, right? She says, O beauty of the worlds, having heard your qualities, which enter the ears of those who hear and remove their bodily distress, and having also heard of your beauty, which fulfills all the visual desires of those who see, I have fixed my shameless mind upon you, O Krishna. So how Krishna fulfills, the word Akhila is used here, which means in the word for word, total. Krishna totally fulfills the sense of sight. He's the fulfillment of what it means to see. Krishna's form is so beautiful. And so that's the very first thing Rukmini does is recognizes Krishna's beauty. This is, in a sense, kirtan. You'll notice other prayers in the Bhagavatam also start in this way, with some kind of appreciation, some kind of glorification. None of this glorification should be confused with flattery. This is actually simply statements of fact. These devotees, Rukmini in this instance, is recognizing as a statement of fact that Krishna, you are the beauty of the worlds. You are the fulfillment of vision. And I think that's just so beautiful to recognize, and a model for us, perhaps, in which to approach Krishna in prayer, to first recognize, oh Krishna, how amazing are you? Krishna, you are everywhere, you are in all things. There's so many beautiful prayers in the Gita even that help us approach Krishna in this mood of recognizing how incredible, awesome, sweet, and beautiful Krishna is. So that's the first verse and the first takeaway. And it represents this method of kirtan, this method of appreciating Krishna, of glorifying Krishna, of establishing the truth and reality of the divine being, is also, in a sense, establishing sambandha, establishing relationship. It's the first step in connecting in our prayers. Establishing sambandha, meaning establishing who we are in relationship to Krishna, and how great and wonderful and beautiful and attractive he is to us. The second thing I took away from these verses and wanted to share with you is how honest and vulnerable Rukmini is. In the purport to that first verse, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada write, Rukmini was king's daughter, courageous and bold, and furthermore, she would rather die than lose Krishna. Considering all this, she wrote a frank, explicit letter begging Krishna to come and take her away. In the second verse of this section, verse 38, she writes, O Mukunda, you are equal only to yourself in lineage, character, beauty, knowledge, youthfulness, wealth, and influence. O lion among men, you delight the minds of all mankind. What aristocratic, sober-minded, and marriageable girl of a good family would not choose you as her husband when the proper time comes? And then verse 39, therefore, my dear Lord, I have chosen you as my husband, and I surrender myself to you. Please come swiftly, O Almighty One, and make me your wife. My dear lotus-eyed Lord, let Shishupal never touch the hero's portion like a jackal stealing the property of a lion. So in verse 38, she calls Krishna O Mukunda. This is again significant because Mukunda means one who grants liberation, mukti. And in this instance, Rukmini is asking Krishna for liberation from her marriage, her impending marriage to Shishupal, knowing that only Krishna can liberate her from this situation. And then I'd like to read verse 40, which to me really exemplifies this kind of honest, vulnerable sense of almost desperation that Rukmini is exhibiting in her prayer to Krishna. She says in verse 40 of this chapter, if I have sufficiently worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead by pious works, sacrifices, charity, rituals, and vows, and also by worshipping the demigods, brahmanas, and gurus, then may Gadagraja come and take my hand and not Damogosha's son or anyone else. Why is this a verse that to me signifies or shows, exemplifies Rukmini's yearning? Because how often do we find ourselves in a position where we are listing to Krishna our good deeds? Oh, look, Krishna, I did this, and I did this, and I did this. We don't do that often. The only reason I can imagine, and I'm limited, I completely accept that, my understanding is incomplete, but the only way in which I can contextualize and appreciate these words of Rukmini, where she's listing, oh, I've worshipped you, I've done sacrifices and charity and rituals and vows and worshiped the demigods and the brahmanas and the gurus. She's listing all these things she's done is because she is almost at wit's end. There's a sense that she's not really sure what other choice she has. She's so desperate. She's letting Krishna know. Krishna, look, I've done all of these things. Please, please. So there's this sense of desperation. Otherwise, she would not have, in my opinion or my understanding, listed all of her good deeds. Not a particularly humble devotional practice in the way we tend to understand that. But what I see her doing here is that she's being real. She's being honest and she's being vulnerable. And I think that's the second thing we should take away from how to pray to Krishna learning from these verses. Another thing I'd like to point out is Rukmini uses the epithet Gadagraja here, which means older brother of Gada. So at first I was thought, wait, is that Balaram? But no, Krishna is the younger brother of Balaram. Who is Gadagraja? And so I did a little bit of research and I found some devotees writing, and I'll just read out from this website. If anyone's interested, I can share the link. The name Gadagraja indicates Krishna, the elder brother Agraja of Gada. Who is Gada? Gada is the first son of Deva Rakshita. She was a sister of Devaki's, who was also married to Vasudeva. I didn't know that. Did anyone else know that? So Krishna has another younger brother, or cousin, really, but brother, which, I mean, we know Balaram is his brother. We know Arjuna is a cousin, but we haven't really heard so much about Gada. Well, he is being referred to as Gada here. So I just wanted to point that out. I think that was a neat little piece of trivia for those of you who are interested in that. And finally, so this second method of honest and vulnerable approach in prayer, this can be considered abhideya. This can be considered the means of prayer. Just as praising, glorifying Krishna in kirtan at the beginning of our prayer can be considered sambandha, really revealing our hearts vulnerably can be considered abhideya in this method of prayer. This method of truthful, honest revelation is actually what invites Krishna's grace and allows us to receive it. We see the same example in the Bhagavad Gita, with Arjuna pouring his heart out in the first chapter, revealing how he feels incapable of killing his relatives, and he'd rather die than have his hands tainted by the blood of those he loves. And so many beautiful verses. So I've been directed to leave about 10 minutes for Q&A, so I will keep moving on. The final thing that we can take away perhaps from these verses is that Rukmini is very specific. Rukmini doesn't just say, Krishna, I want to marry you, figure out the rest. She says, Krishna, I want to marry you, and here are the details of exactly how you're going to come save me. You're going to infiltrate the kingdom. You're going to surround yourself by your generals, and then you're going to come steal me away while everyone is go on their way to the Devi temple right before the wedding, right? So she has planned it all out for Krishna. She actually has a vision of what she wants, right? She isn't simply coming from a place of it doesn't stop. The honesty and vulnerability, this receptiveness doesn't stop her from appreciating Krishna's greatness, doesn't stop her from expressing her full desire. And I think this is really beautiful, that Rukmini, in the final verse of our section, and then the verses that you'll all be reading tomorrow and in the next few days, she says, "Oh, unconquerable one, tomorrow when my marriage ceremony is about to begin, you should arrive unseen in Vidarbha," which is where she lives, "and surround yourself with the leaders of your army. Then crush the forces of Chaitya and Magadendra and marry me in the Rakshasa style, winning me with your valor." She even tells him exactly the kind of style of wedding she wants. This is, it's lovely. It's lovely to see. It's inspiring to see. It's instructive to witness, because it gives us a sense that we should know what we're praying for ultimately. Even if, this is prayojana. This is the prayojana section of her prayer. This is the goal that she wants, knowing exactly who she is and what she wants in relationship with Krishna. And for us, many of us, that may simply mean knowing and praying for a particular service that we want in this life and beyond. Someone, and I'm just wrapping up now, someone just told me that it's International Women's Day today, and I thought it was great that we're reading the prayers of Rukmini. And I also just wanted to leave you all with a question, actually. Does anyone know who the first person, feel free to turn on your cameras, does anyone know who the first person in the Bhagavatam is to give us a glimpse into Krishna's Vrindavan Leela? Who is the first speaker in the Bhagavatam to give us a glimpse into Krishna's Vrindavan Leela? Anyone? Any guesses?
Mother Kunti?
Yes, Adipurusha Prabhu Jai. Mother Kunti, in the prayers of Queen Kunti, she writes in verse 31 of chapter 8 of Canto 1, "My dear Krishna, Yashoda took a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflowed with tears, which washed the mascara from your eyes, and you were afraid, though fear personified is afraid of you. This sight is bewildering to me. This glimpse into Vrindavan Leela was received from Mother Kunti, and I just wanted to point that out again in sort of in tacit celebration of Women's Day and the beautiful Vaishnavis in the Bhagavatam that are our teachers, including Rukmini and Queen Kunti. And with that, I'd like to offer all the time back to the devotees to share or ask any questions, offer any corrections. Yeah, it's been a
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Premananda Vilas Das Prabhu. We really enjoyed your first class and everything that you had to offer. So yes, this is the time for questions and loving reflections. Please either raise your hand or unmute yourself to share.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu.
Delighted to hear your class. Very cool. You know, it was really wonderful. We hope you'll continue to join us and share from your heart what your spiritual message is empowering you so nicely. We were listening to a class yesterday, a really nice class by Adi Gadadhar, but when he's talking about santosh, you know that word santosh, it means to be satisfied, right? And what does it say? Ahaitukya pratiyata. Only by unceasing, unmotivated devotional service to Krishna will we be satisfied. And this letter is very interesting because she's describing her situation, and she's expressing that if you don't come and take me, I'll be swept away and captured and controlled and be just by someone else. And we're all in that position. If we don't give ourselves completely to Krishna, the material world, whatever inch, whatever strength, whatever time, whatever Lakshmi, whatever intelligence or gifts that we have, if we don't give them to Krishna, then Maya will powerfully sweep us away like a big river, like, you know. So I was here, you know, we hear these stories again and again, and each time Krishna allows us to understand a little something else. So we have to be very, very careful, like she's being careful and saying, Krishna, please take me. Please fill my life with, you know, devotional service. I want to give myself totally to you, and you know, and protect me from getting swept away by another suitor. Right? It's such a cool a way that she describes the whole thing. Just struck me. And then I'll be satisfied. Well, glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you so much, Adi Purush Prabhu. Thank you for your comments. There's a Mukunda Prabhu who would like, oh, Hare Krishna, Mukunda Prabhu. Jai.
Hare Prabhuji, Dandavad, good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Wow. Jai, are you living in New York now, or?
No, I'm in Washington, D.C. Yeah.
Okay, Haribo, very good. Well, I'm sorry, I'm out because I have some work to do, but I just want to mention a very beautiful and interesting thing. Srila Rupa Goswami has written in Lalit Madhav that actually all of the queens that are there in Dwarka, headed by Rukmini, they're actually expansions of the gopis in Vrindavan.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, Rukmini is actually Chandravali. Satyabhama will be actually Prakash of Radhika. And then Kalindi's expansion of Vishaka, Jambavati's expansion of Lalita. Understand? But Mahaprabhu told that you should write these two dramas, one Vidagdha Madhav and one Lalit Madhav, and keep the conception separate. So obviously Rukmini does not know she's Chandravali in Vrindavan, but it sets up the dynamic to make the comparison between how high class the love of the gopis in Vrindavan is, because now by comparison, the most perfect wife, the most beautiful, enchanted, she'll have 10 sons and a daughter, and they'll have amazing palaces, but still Krishna will not be completely satisfied. Because he'll remember Vrijabasis and he'll remember Shrimati Radhika. So very wonderful. The whole Gaudiya theology is so wonderful, Babu. And you mentioned it right in the beginning, so I just thought I would add that bit.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to receive these pearls this morning. Thank you, Mukunda Prabhu.
Jai Haribol.
Did you have a question?
Hare Krishna, thank you for class. I just had a small reflection that was just something that brought up. I was just thinking, she has it all laid out so wonderfully, and isn't that a wonderful lesson for us that we should really plan our spiritual lives? We plan everything else, and then we sort of squeeze in our japa around it and all the things. And why not explicitly, I'm going to read now, I'm going to do this now, and really make the plan like she shows us so beautifully, and not just going to leave it to whenever we have, time around our material needs. So I just really was thinking about that as we heard her beautiful planning. Hare Krishna.
So fantastic. Such a great point, Jamuna Jaya, and an opportunity for me to just emphasize how important it is. Like Jamuna Jaya is saying, we have a vision for our material lives. Oh, in 5 years, I'm going to do this. And in 10 years, I'd like to be here, and so on and so forth. And to be able to bring that innate ability to envision what our future in seva is going to be like, what are in the ways in which we'd like to serve Krishna. I think that's the fulfillment of that potency, that human potency, to want to plan, just as Rukmini was so intricately planning her own kidnapping by Krishna. Are there any other? Yes, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Premananda, Vilas Prabhu. I was actually wondering, since it's your first class, we usually ask this of first-time presenters, if you could share how you came to Krishna consciousness, just so that those of us that don't know you can get to know you a little bit, please.
Of course. That's a very generous invitation. Thank you, Damodar Priyaji. So I grew up in India, and in around 2007 or 2008, I met some devotee. Actually, it turned out one of my classmates in high school was a devotee, and she used to bring prasadam as like her lunch every day, and all of our friends used to ask her for some. And at some point, I connected that, she has a spiritual life and a spiritual practice, and I was puzzled as a 16-year-old. I didn't understand why other 16-year-olds would care about God and religion and spirituality. It didn't make any sense. So I went to a program. I was like, I need to figure out what this is about. So I went to a program in a basement in a beautiful devotees outside Delhi. I went to a program. I attended kirtan. I started reading some of Srila Prabhupada's books, and I wasn't immediately. It didn't immediately click for me. It was only a couple of years later when I came to the University of Virginia, and there's a Bhakti Yoga club there, and I started going to a club, and I'd started reading the Gita by then. And I think it was in the association of devotees on a regular basis that I could really start to appreciate Srila Prabhupada's movement and his message. And I loved kirtan from the beginning. So all of it, all of what is so beautiful about our practice and our tradition called out to me from those early days, and I've just been practicing since then. So, and perhaps not the most cinematic how did I come to Krishna consciousness exciting story with plot twists or anything, but to me it was simple. I was looking for some kind of answers, and then in the association of devotees, I felt fully satiated, fully satisfied. So thank you, Damodar Priya, for that invitation.
I think that's actually the best. I think it doesn't always have to be dramatic. I think there's something to be said for people who are just quietly and just kind of like with love and determination, just going towards, Krishna and his devotees. And I think there's something to be said for that, because it's always the quiet ones who are the ones that you have to look out for, right? So, so thank you for sharing your story. I think that's great. And I was actually wondering, since you're in DC, are you familiar with like Rukmini Walker Prabhu, who is at the Potomac Temple?
Yeah, of course. And we,
okay.
For those of you who ever come into the orbit of the national capital, Washington, D.C., please reach out to me and know that there's a wonderful studio where we have a project, an outreach project called Bhakti Yoga DC, and we do weekly satsangs and monthly kirtans and Bhagavad Gita.
Could you put the link in the chat perhaps so that we can all...
Sure. I'll
hear it?
put the name of the studio and you all can look it up from there.
Great, thank you. And we also have a question in the chat from Ananda Manjari Devidasi Prabhu. I don't know if she wants to say it aloud herself or if she wants us to read it. Okay, she's right.
I can read it. That's fine.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nanda Manjari. I'm still not resolved internally about why it is important in this context that Krishna is referred to as the older brother of Gada by Rukmini. What qualities are invoked through that? You know, that's an excellent question, and it's not something I have much clarity around either. But what I did read, and I can share what I did read about it, is that in another section of the Bhagavatam, the gopis call Krishna Gadagraja. And when is this? This is when Krishna is left for Mathura, right? So the devotees who are writing this commentary based on the previous acharyas, they say, the gopis, by addressing Krishna in this way, indicate that he now thinks of himself mostly as the son of Devaki. The implication being that his connection with Vrindavan has now slackened. Because of intense love, the gopis could not stop thinking of Krishna for a moment in this way. So in other contexts, Ananda Manjari, the word Gadagraja makes more sense, like coming from the gopis. It's like, oh yeah, Krishna's forgotten us. He's now the son of Devaki, not, you know, the son of Yashoda. But from Rukmini, perhaps, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to simply say that I'm not totally clear as well. Perhaps some of the devotees on the call have an idea of why Rukmini is referring here to Krishna as Gadagraja.
Yes, Prabhuji. In part, there's one verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Jayati Jananivaso Devaki Janmavado. So this word vad means like a theory, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
So those who are outside of Braj, they refer to Krishna as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, and they create their idea of his relation to society around that. So because Rukmini is asking Krishna to come and kidnap her in the Kshatriya mode, and also there'll be no question about his lineage, she's aligning him with Devaki and Vasudeva.
Right, right.
Because as any cowherd boy, you were not asked to come and challenge all of the kings there to kidnap you in the Kshatriya Gandharva ceremony. You understand? So she's making this reference that he's qualified.
Thank you, Mukunda Prabhu. I really appreciate that. Essentially, Rukmini is recognizing that Krishna has an established royal lineage and he's a worthy suitor to take her away. Thank you so much, Mukunda Prabhu. I hope that was satisfying to you, Ananda Manjari. It was certainly satisfying to me. Any other questions, comments, reflections? It's good to see you, Henry Prabhu.
I just had a quick reflection, Prabhu. I just really loved how you pointed out that Rukmini, she needed to be courageous and bold when seeking out Krishna, and just reminded me of, especially with so many senior devotees here, how a lot of times when we're asked by Krishna to be very courageous and bold in our service or doing things that make us uncomfortable. Because I'm sure she, being a king's daughter, it's not like she was exactly like 100% comfortable that she had to like be so forefront, but she did it because it was worth it for Krishna. So I thought that was really great. So thank you for reminding us that that's something that we can kind of take in mind as well.
Yeah, and some of the most courageous things we ever have to do is actually fully reveal our hearts and minds to another person. It takes a lot of courage to be fully honest and vulnerable like that. So I completely agree. Thought there was another question. If not, I can...
Yeah, Bhima Prabhu had his hand up. I don't know if he's still here. There he goes.
Haribol.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Prabhu. Good. I just wanted to say, aptly named Premananda, to express, your joy at this romantic interlude in Krishna's Leela, his flight. I just wanted to say, as we can see in Rukmini's, in this pastime, in her letter of yearning to be swept off her feet with Krishna, and then she made a plan for how he's going to do it. So that bold and courageous enough, if that devotee is sincere enough to want Krishna and Krishna only, not riches, not wealth. Shishupal, the name actually means many children, family man type of thing. So it was like, so Rukmini just wanted Krishna. And the object lesson here is that if you really are just cent percent fixed on wanting Krishna in your life, you can go forward boldly and Krishna will, fight the fight for you. As Prabhupada coming over on the Yaladuta, he had nothing. He came over. Krishna was there protecting him. Looking back over Prabhupada's mission, his adventure, looking back on the adventures of all the devotees who have built this movement to where it is that we see Krishna reciprocating in this way, whether it be sweeping us off our feet or removing obstacles, or testing us, or saying, do you really want me here? I'll give you this. Now, do you want me or do you want this? So we can see that, that sort of like we have to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And that, it's not just the deity in the temple, it's the deity in the moment. Krishna is always testing. Hare Krishna.
About to open. And we'll do Q&A afterwards. Continue.
Jai Shri Sri Radha Muladhar Ki Jai, Shri Guru Chandra Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Premananda Vilas Prabhu Ki Jai. Wonderful class. You're such a sincere soul, Premananda Vilas. Thank you. Wonderful. And where is Mukunda Prabhu? Mukunda Prabhu, very impressive clarification. Damodar Priya, thank you so much for waking me up.
Oh, always, Prabhu. I was actually going to say, Ananda Manjari Devidasi Prabhu, she asked if we could read her comment that she had written before her question, because she's in the West Coast, so she can't really speak aloud because I guess everybody's sleeping.
I can read it.
Can you read it? Thank you.
Yeah, she writes, returning to the moment of Rukmini stating her pious points, and how she clearly shares there's no other way, and how it invited Krishna to meet her desire to marry her. I think of its reflection in a prayer, that there's a necessity to recognize that we fall short despite our best efforts and require grace for our prayers to manifest from the sweet will of the Lord, that the spiritual master, as Srila Prabhupada stated, becomes our qualification for service despite the shortcomings. Thank you, Ananda Manjari. It's reminding me of how, and the previous comments from Brahma Prabhu as well, were reminding me of how Rukmini could have just prayed, Krishna, save me from Shishupal. She could have just simply been like, Krishna, find me another husband, please. But no, it was like, Krishna, you come and save me. You be my husband. And it's so incredible to see how intense and saturated and clear the vision of these advanced devotees is. Unlike, I would have probably prayed in that situation, oh, just send me someone better, please send me someone better. But here Rukmini is actually, no, Krishna, she knows, she's established in Siddhanta and in Sambandha. She knows there's no one better than Krishna. I think Bhima Prabhu has another comment or question. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Haribol Prabhu, I just wanted to share a very quick anecdote. I have a very good friend in the movement, and he had a daughter who was coming into her age, I guess 16 or something. It was at a Boston temple, and she all of a sudden found herself, well, not all of a sudden found herself, but there were some boys, very pretty girl, and boys were, being her suitor, and all of a sudden she started going on dates and stuff like that. And so the father stepped in, and the temple president stepped in, because it was getting rather inappropriate type of thing. And we actually shipped the kid off. We gave him a plane ticket and shipped him across the United States. And I remember coming into the temple room, and she was there alone, and she was crying. And I told her, I said, oh, why are you crying? She goes, I can't believe they just shipped my boyfriend across the United. It was a young man who was, and they said, to tell you what, we're going to give you a couple $1,000s, and we're going to ship you to Salt Lake City, that temple there. And she was crying. I go, well, why don't you, and she goes, oh, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And I said, well, why don't you do a Rukmini? I go, why don't you do a Rukmini? Why aren't you interested in making, I was rather young at the time in the movement, so I didn't know enough, but I just said, why don't you just, pray like Rukmini to marry Krishna? Why don't you marry Krishna like Mirabai? Why don't you just give yourself over to Krishna? And she looked at me straight in the eyes, and she goes, that ain't happening.
Well, at least she got the honest, vulnerable part.
She did. I couldn't believe it. All of a sudden she stopped crying, looked at me straight in the eyes, and she goes, excuse me, that ain't happening. It just blew me away. It was just so funny at the time, because she was crying about losing her boyfriend. The fact that we all pitched in money to buy him a plane ticket and get him out of there so that nothing happened. and then, you know, to say, you know what, and I was like trying to be advanced by saying, why don't you just pray like Rukmini to Krishna come and marry you, and why don't you, like Mirabai fell in love with Krishna and that was enough for her. And she looked at me straight in the eyes and goes, that ain't happening. And I was
Thank you
realized
for sharing that, Bhima Prabhu. Yeah, as complicated as that situation was, I'm glad that you see some lessons there. It reminds me that in this particular instance, in the previous verses, it's shown how actually all of Rukmini's family wanted her to be married to Krishna, except the oldest brother Rukmini, who was friends with Shishupal, and it was marrying Rukmini off to Shishupal was a way of basically slighting Krishna, whereas all of the rest of the family actually wanted them to be married. So it says in the Krishna book and the purports, I believe. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see how in this particular Leela, different people take different sides. You know, who should do what, and the only reason the father agreed to marry Rukmini to Shishupal was because he was very attached to his eldest son Rukmini, and so he wanted to follow Rukmini's desire because Rukmini found the match. So anyway, that's what I have. I really am so grateful for everyone joining us today and hearing me. I just wanted to reemphasize that the four takeaways from this particular passage are that we must approach Krishna through the Guru, that when we pray, we must first start by appreciating, glorifying Krishna and establishing sambandha. And then we must reveal our hearts with honest vulnerability. And finally, we must know what we want, really, and meditate and visualize and share that with Krishna. So that's what I got. And I'm grateful for everyone joining me on this little experiment of giving Bhagavatam class at the Bhakti Center.
Thank you, Premananda Vilas Prabhu. Wonderfully said. This was a total success, overwhelming success, flawless victory. Thank you, Prabhu. Thanks for allowing all the devotees to participate. It was very nice of you. It was nice seeing everybody, dear devotees. You were going to say something, Premananda Vilas Prabhu? Your final instruction?
Always a pleasure to be in this wonderful company. Thank you.
Yeah.
He has to promise to give a class again, Prabhu. He has to make a promise in front of us all that he's going to give a class again.
He's a regular now.
Is he a regular? Great.
Yeah. And we're gonna have Mukunda Prabhu give class. Mukunda Prabhu is such a scholar, right?
I was gonna say anything for Ananda Bihari Prabhu, as long as he has. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Adi Purusha Prabhu, you waved your hand. Were you just blessing us? Or you wanted to say something? Thumbs up for Premananda Vilas's class. Yes, absolutely. All right, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. Happy Friday, everybody. Thank you for your association. We need it on a daily basis. We fall short in every way. But by your grace, by your mercy, we're sticking around. Thank you, Premananda Vilas. Thank you, co-hosts. Thank you, dear devotees. It's nice seeing your bright faces. We love you. Hare Krishna, Hare Ram.